A very good morning, everyone. I hope that all of you are doing well. Today we have a really exciting debate with a panel of wonderful speakers beside me, who I will introduce in just a moment. So as Ashif mentioned, the topic or the motion for today is the Metaverse, a welcome possibility or an unrealistic utopia. In other words, today we will be discussing the pros and the cons, the good and maybe the not so good things about the Metaverse or the future of the Metaverse. I think that some of us might be wondering as well, what exactly is the Metaverse? Which I think is one of the problems with something so new and recent, right? Which is that it is so difficult to define and everyone has so many different definitions. But I do think that generally there are a few different characteristics of the Metaverse that most people would be able to agree on. First of all, I think that it is an interconnected digital space where we can do so many things on it. It is sort of like an alternate world or parallel world of sorts. This is not something that is completely new. I have spent as Ashif mentioned, I've spent many hours, thousands of hours playing online games in the past, and fine, even now as well. And in these games, I could hang out with friends, I could solve problems, I could go shopping online, and we could do things together. It was an experience where we could interact with one another and just have some fun. Today, there are many examples of this, and we don't just use it to play, we use it for work, for shopping, for leisure, for so many other different things as well. Basically, the Metaverse is supposed to be a seamless interaction, not just between people, but between worlds as well. Another feature of the Metaverse, perhaps, is that it is supposed to be exceedingly immersive. It is a 3D-enabled space, usually, not always, but usually with the aid of technologies like virtual reality or augmented reality goggles. Today, technology is not new to us, right? We use WhatsApp every day or Telegram. We use email for work. We use TikTok or YouTube for leisure. The Metaverse is supposed to take this immersion to another level. So overall, it is poised to really be just a significant part of the next phase of the internet. And how are we going to talk about this next phase of the internet? Well, it is through a debate. So I'm sure some of you also might be wondering how this will work. The first round will be 4 speeches of 6 minutes each. So we have a total of 4 speakers, 2 from each side, 2 from the proposition, which is the supporting side, and 2 from the opposition, which is the opposing side. First, we will have 1 speaker from the proposition come up and give their speech. Then we have a speaker from the opposing side give a speech, and then we just move back and forth like that. The second round will be the quick fire round, which is slightly more complicated. I will pose a total of 4 questions, 1 for each speaker. And after a speaker gives their response, the other side will also have a chance to give their response or rebuttal to whatever the previous speaker has said. So with that being said, I think now it is time for me to introduce our lovely speakers today. Can we please give a warm round of applause for our speakers today, ladies and gentlemen? On the first speaker of the proposition, we have Dr. Khoo Eng Tat. Dr. Khoo is a principal investigator of the Immersive Reality Lab at the National University of Singapore. Beyond his academic interest in virtual, augmented, and mixed reality, his wide industry experience includes serving as a founding member of the HoloMedicine Association and being a startup mentor at Pixel as well. Very good morning, Dr. Khoo. The second proposition speaker we have is So Wan Wei. Can we give her a round of applause as well, please? Wan Wei is a Singaporean tech futurist, an ecosystem builder, and a thought leader in the Web 3.0 and Metaverse space. Passionate about open source movements and education, she is also the founder and CEO of Ikigai Metaverse Collective, or IMC for short, and OpenMetaverse.Asia. Ikigai Metaverse Collective counts New York Stock Exchange listed Nutanix, Hitachi, Crypto.com, as well as non-profit alliance Changemakers Exchange as some of the key players and clients in its portfolio. Wanwei identifies herself as a global citizen and has previously spent 4 years living in Europe and a year in Japan as well. An experienced community advocate, Wanwei has spoken at more than 100 reputable Web 3.0, Metaverse, and AI industry conferences and hackathons globally. So thank you very much for being with us here today. Now I will introduce the opposition side. For the first opposition speaker, we have Yoganitha Sivakumar. Can we welcome her as well? Yoganitha is an economics graduate who pursued her passion and delved into writing as a career. She covers news and writes op-eds on the tech and startup industry for publications such as the Vulcan Post. Among her works are commentaries on the development of the metaverse, both internationally and domestically as well. Good morning, Yoga. And finally, we have our last speaker to round off the panel today. We have Keith Barrett Carter. Can we also welcome him, please? Keith is a partner at KBC Global Partners, an IT consulting firm that helps companies monetize their data projects. Besides having vast industry experience, he was also a past associate professor at the School of Computing at National University of Singapore, and he teaches at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning.
All right, happy to be here, guys. So now that we've introduced our speakers, another question we might be wondering is, how are we going to decide how each side have performed? Well, we will do this through the use of a poll. What this audience poll is supposed to do is that it is supposed to get a sensing of how each of us feel about the topic at hand. So could I get everyone in the audience, both live and at home as well, please scan the QR code that's on your screen, or for the audience, the screen is to your right, and it will take you to a Kahoot website. This website basically will give us a sensing of how each person in the audience thinks about the metaverse right now. Alternatively, instead of scanning the QR code, you could also log on to kahoot.it and you can key in the game pin, which is on the top of the screen as well. So the game pin is 4237559. That is 4237559. Please go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and just log on using your devices. Scan the QR code, log in to Kahoot, and give your opinion in just a moment. All right, I see we have quite a lot of people signing up over on the screen. All right, more than 60 people already. Still quite a lot of people signing up. For those of you at home, if you are sitting beside your friends and watching this right now, get them to sign up as well. Get them to sign up on the QR code or just log on to Kahoot. One thing about Kahoot that I usually like to see is the different names over there. Like if you look at the names, Awesome Pigeon, Fabulous Gecko, Bright Dolphin, all wonderful members of the audience. Okay, so the poll is beginning. Please go ahead and look at the question on the screen. Basically, it's just what is your current opinion on the metaverse, and there are 4 options. You can go ahead and select the option that you most resonate with. So the first option is that I think the metaverse will be a digital nightmare. Wow, very strong words. The second option is that I think the metaverse will be a virtual paradise. Wow, very optimistic view. The third option in yellow is I am on the fence, and the last one is I don't really know that much about the metaverse. So if you're not sure which one to press, go ahead and look at the screen. Beside each answer, you will see that there is a shape and a color as well. You can go ahead and just press the shape and color that is on your device that kind of reflects how you feel. All right, we just have about 10 seconds left. If you haven't already pressed your answer, please go ahead and answer now. Okay, time is up, and let's take a look at the answers on the screen. Wow, pretty interesting results here actually. Okay, so first 31 out of about 80 respondents is on the fence. That's all right. I mean, we are here to learn after all and have a better understanding of things. But the next most popular response, I think the metaverse will be a virtual paradise. Wow, that's quite interesting that so many people, a large proportion of the audience, actually believe in the goodness of the metaverse. But we also have a proportion, about 13% of you say that you think the metaverse will be a digital nightmare. Wow, that is really quite a strong word, a digital nightmare. And of course, there are some of us who are not too sure and are waiting to watch the debate before deciding. So, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and just take note of how many people voted for each choice. And at the end of today's debate, we will be doing another poll so that we can better understand how our opinions have shifted over time as we open our mind to new perspectives, especially the perspectives of the speaker sitting next to me here today. All right, thank you very much. I think with all of us having a better understanding of how the audience feels as well, we should go ahead and start the debate. I would now like to invite the first speaker of the proposition, Dr. Koo, to give your opening speech and comments for everyone ahead. Dr. Koo, please.
Thanks, Adam. As Adam has shared earlier, I think Metaverse, would create a new medium where we could blend the real, the physical, and also the virtual world or digital worlds into creating new experiences for play. And already, I think we have existing forms of a metaverse, like online digital games. One good example would be like Roblox, where you can argue it's not so immersive. It's still very much a kind of a game that you play on a computer, on a mobile devices. You are connected to the internet. You play with other friends. But this is where it's a really a virtual environment where players could then have different avatars. They can customize, they can express themselves. At the same time, they can do things what they do normally, right? They can meet their friends, they can talk to their friends on this online environment. They can go about doing some activities, they can even buy things in this environment. But they can also do something that is very different as well, which normally we couldn't do in our daily life. For example, they can fly around in the environment. There are different games or activities in this environment that allow them to, for example, adopt a virtual pet, right? And they can customize the virtual pets, the look and feel. They could trade them. They can do a lot of things that empower them, new experiences, play and engagement with other people that otherwise couldn't happen in the real world. Right, so this is interesting, and although they are using their online personas, which should vastly different from their actual persona, their actual person itself. Some of them dress very differently in the online world, but they are making connections with real friends. And I think this is real opportunity for play and for engagement. And and just imagine today, as we speak, Roblox have about 30 million daily active users. Just imagine if you have a lot more immersive environment, you can engage, you can really see yourself in this environment. We could see a much bigger number and bigger opportunity for engagement. Yeah. And on the second point, I would like to share also, Metaverse could increase the accessibility to opportunity and resources. Right, we have seen how COVID have disrupted our economy and many industries. It has disrupted our work. I think when COVID first hit, we are like, oh, how are we going to work now, right? We can't meet each other. Right? We can't go to the office. Then it came about solutions like Zoom, like online meetings that allow us to still continue with the meeting. Although not the most immersive, right? But you can get some things done. We can still meet other people. We can exchange ideas and get on with the projects. But it's still not immersive. But one thing we realized that current metaverse itself, or forms of metaverse like games or Zoom or online meetings, those are still not the true nature of what the metaverse will be, say in the next 5 or 10 years, right? But it shows us an opportunity where it can really create, connect people and allow us to access to opportunity and resources which otherwise we couldn't. Like, we can meet our colleagues, right, on Zoom. But if you can't feel immersive, you don't feel that it's the same as a real meeting, where you can see each other, you can pass object, you can pass a coffee to a colleague, right? We can enjoy a cup of coffee together, right? Or you can do, look at the prototypes and be able to touch the look and feel of it, right? So those are things that are still not achievable today. In a more for most consumers. But in the research, we have started to explore how do we create a virtual environments that allow us to do that. When, in my lab, immersive reality lab, we look at what immersive reality, for example, virtual reality and augmented reality could change that. I remember when the COVID first hit, we have challenged our colleagues in the medical school, in the hospitals have challenged how do they teach the students, medical students and doctors, because they couldn't bring them around in the ward anymore, right? It's a restricted environment, they restricted access. So we created virtual delivery, virtual hospitals, clinics, and we have a project where we created a virtual delivery suite that allow medical students, these are year 4 medical students, that they can allow them to understand, they step into this virtual delivery suite, they can perform delivery of babies, right? So they deliver virtual babies, and it's all step-by-step guidance. All the procedures are realistic. They could see how they are actually performing, right? And this sometimes could be even more than just what they could do in the real world, because in the real world, if they are in the delivery suite, they could probably just be observing, right? They are not getting a hands-on training, but in a virtual environment, they could do that. So I think there's an opportunity for virtual reality to really transform how we could work, we could learn. And that's not that. We can also do things like mixed augmented reality. This is where we have another program where we look at creating AI simulated patients. So we created different patients so that medical students and doctors could train on them. We have created a hologram patient. For example, they're in a clinic, right? And there's this hologram of the patient in front of them. And the students could then interact with this patient to kind of do clinical assessment. We have done that for orthopedic. We have also created scenarios where pediatrics, different respiratory illnesses in pediatric baby, so that the students need to know how to identify those symptoms. We also done on eye examinations where we have a virtual patient, hologram patient, but you can use the real tools to kind of assess them and to actually carry out all those medical procedures. So this is really, I think, it's still early in the research, but I think in the future, in the next 5 to 10 years, we could see a lot more engaging virtual and mixed reality that could make the whole metaverse a lot more immersive. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Dr. Koo, for sharing about that and your work. It's quite interesting as well how the metaverse or an online space is no longer just a place for play, as I think most of us used to think it was. But now it's used for even more than just work. It's also used for practice, for classes and all of that. So thank you for sharing. For the first speaker of the opposition, we will be having Yoga to share with us what she thinks of the metaverse. So Yoga, over to you.
Thanks, Adam. While I do agree with Dr. Koo that the metaverse gives us a lot more opportunities, I would like to say that these opportunities are only given to a small number of people. And why I say this is, for the metaverse to truly be immersive, it would most likely require the ownership of advanced devices such as VR goggles, VR headsets. These devices are actually quite pricey. I think they cost thousands, and not everyone can be able to afford it. As we go deeper into the metaverse and it develops, more interactions and opportunities would happen in the metaverse. And what this means is that for those without access to VR headsets and goggles, they would be shut out from the metaverse and these opportunities. But that's just in Singapore's context. Globally, there's a lot of people out there without internet connections or computers at all. So it would be very hard to implement this and give equal opportunity to everyone. During COVID-19, remote learning was already a huge issue as children had no access to personal learning devices. I myself saw how bad this was because I had to go back to Malaysia, which is where I'm from, and I saw a lot of school children without access to the education that they are supposed to get for months. So the wealth divide between the poor and the rich will only increase as the barriers of entry for work, education, and experiences are now not just an internet connection, but also the personal ownership of advanced devices. I would also like to add that the metaverse, while the metaverse develops, it would get more immersive with time, but it can never truly replace human experiences. These experiences, such as human touch, being in a place of great historical and spiritual significance, can never ever be replicated in the metaverse because the value of these experiences lies in them being physically genuine. So, as real experiences get replaced with virtual connections, it would take away the time and opportunity for people to be physically, to engage physically. So what this means is that it would cause feelings of loneliness and isolation, and this would be hard to combat as virtual experiences would be assumed to be adequate. During COVID-19, there were Zoom classes. Like if you were studying, your classes were shifted to Zoom. If you were working, your meetings were shifted to Zoom. This didn't stop people from feeling lonely. During that time, I was actually in university, so I know how it felt, and I couldn't really connect with my lectures, and I didn't really understand what was going on. So while online interactions are good, the metaverse takes this a step too far. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Now, on that note about taking classes online and not really pay attention, I admit during the pandemic period, I was guilty of just turning off my camera and just listening in to project meetings or even classes with my head on the pillow, just being, oh, yes, yes. So yeah, I can relate to that. Our second speaker of the proposition is Wan Wei. Are you ready to share?
Okay, sure. Thanks,
Right.
Adam. Hope everyone is awake because I'm not very awake. Okay, we operate at night in like maybe the Web3 space. Okay, so let me summarize the points so far by Dr. Koo. So he says that the metaverse, there are good things about it because firstly, it has gaming users. Gaming users means that how many people are gamers here? Do you play games? Candy Crush? Okay, Roblox? Dota? PUBG? Okay, cool. So a handful of us are gamers, right? And so metaverse, they benefit gamers. They allow gamers to connect online. So the second part is, of course, there are practical applications to metaverse as well in healthcare, right? So everyone will definitely, at any one point in time, will fall sick. People have kids here, and definitely we will die one day. Definitely, this is guaranteed, right? So the metaverse in this case, through the hologram AR technology users, have practical use cases in the sense that it benefits surgeons or people training to be surgeons in the metaverse. So Yoganita also made very good points on like loneliness, mental health, which definitely we acknowledge all of this. So my third point here for the proposition is that also environmentally, the metaverse makes sense. So according to Gartner, recent Gartner report, right, by 2026, 25% of us all over the world will be spending at least 1 hour in the metaverse. So if you use our phones, right, you can check the screen time currently, how many hours a day we are looking at our screens already. So the next question here is that what exactly is the metaverse? So far, we haven't really defined it yet, except for Adam. So let's go down. I can tell you for sure as a practitioner in the space, no practitioner currently actually have a standardized definition of metaverse. So it can either be very narrow, like the Yoganita, she actually mentioned a very narrow definition, which is you need a VR headset or AR goggle to access the metaverse. And by the way, a gadget average price for VR headset now is 100 plus you can buy already. But also it doesn't negate the point that you still need $100 to buy your VR headset. So the thing is that I'd like to propose to you that there are first principles to the metaverse, 3 first principles. Just remember, it needs to be immersive. Immersive basically means that you are aware with your physical senses that you are in another world that is not really the physical reality. For example, right now, if I start flashing lights all over and have like loud, dramatic music all over, then this is an immersive environment, and it can be a first step to the metaverse. Second, it needs to be interactive. Means on this metaverse, you have something to do. It's not like I look at you, you look at me, and what do we do next? So in such a situation, you need activities on the metaverse. Last but not least, it needs to be social. A metaverse that's not social is a ghost town. It's not a metaverse. So based on these three first principles, the point of it being environmental is as more and more of us spend time online, we want to look good because our friends are also online, which is why we go online to have meaningful interaction, to be in an immersive environment that the physical reality cannot give us. So accordingly, we will want our online avatars to look good. So you have players have spending money on skins. You have digital assets now with the use of Web 3.0 and blockchain, more and more digital assets on chain, which you can trade with each other, verifiable on the blockchain. So this is one very good aspect. The next point that why we here propose the metaverse is that it creates and unlocks new value, not just immersive experiences, but new economic, cultural, and social value. So what this means is that definitely, how many people have kids here? Just a raise of hands. A lot of people have kids. Your kids already play Roblox, 30 million daily average users. You have, so in future, the future of work will belong to your kids, right? And I'm like 30 plus this year, 35. So the thing is that during my time, if like my mom would tell me, hey, why you keep playing games? And being a game developer has no future, but is it true for kids these days? So the answer is not true because so many people are already spending time on gaming worlds in AR/VR technologies with actual use cases like in healthcare. And also now we have this metaverse where your Zoom, even when, can you consider Zoom a metaverse? The answer is yes, because now when you take Zoom, you can actually have AR filters. So you can appear as a rabbit, a cat, or like something going on in your head. So definitely more and more there are a lot of value creation, something that yes, on one hand, as Adam and Yoganita mentioned, like when we're taking Zoom, they switch off the camera, but on the other hand, we are also seeing people in work settings, like so boring work settings, they suddenly appear in different formats of themselves, modified version of themselves, just to introduce the fun element back into work where everyone is suffering like mentally and emotionally during COVID. So all these things like value creation is not just in terms of financial value creation, it's also in terms of social and cultural. So let me give you some statistics. So in 2021, a recorded $110 billion was spent on virtual assets, and 30% goes to digital fashion because we all want to look good. So when we think about metaverse, let's go back to first principle, summary. It needs to be immersive, interactive, social. Second point, human nature will never change because ultimately we still want to look good, we still long for social connection, and as long as these elements are present, offline, online, metaverse, you will be able to get a thriving situation. And that's why Dr. Koo and I, we are on this team today, proposition. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Wan Wei, for those words. Well, when you compared it to buying skins in games or customizing your avatar, that actually threw me back to when I was small and I was still playing games, and I myself was also customizing avatars and buying skins. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And finally, our last speaker for today, we have Keith. Keith, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adam. I'm so glad for us to be able to talk about the metaverse and its impact. Loneliness, isolation, these are the things that we felt sometimes when we were during COVID-19 on Zoom. And here we are talking, let's go further. Let's increase the amount of time we're not interacting with people directly. As we consider this for our next generation too, while the metaverse might be something that one generation is not so connected with, the next generation may be deeply immersed in it. Is that where we want to go? Consider from the aspect of being overwhelmed or connected in on services completely online. Well, today, we see our kids when we go into a restaurant what do we see? Kids looking at their screens while their parents are trying to eat. Sometimes they have headsets on. Today, at least we'd be able to go up and wave our hand in front and say, hey, it's time to eat. Tomorrow, immersed, they'd have a VR goggle. They won't even see your hand anymore. They won't know that you're there, unless maybe you've joined them in the virtual world. The captive market becomes potentially even more captive. You're able to perhaps go to the tax authority. Korea has spent some $50 million in terms of establishing Metaverse government services. So you can go and perhaps go online and pay your taxes. Well, if you're paying your taxes online and perhaps your business is there, when would you come offline? When would you come back into real life and talk with people, shake hands with people? The online capabilities may be more convenient, but it also means that everything that we do is tracked even more. So the small amount of privacy that we have when we're walking down the street holding hands or talking kindly to each other, now even that conversation, even that interaction is in a computer. It's like we're loading our entire life into the digital world. That room, again, connected in, lonely, isolated, the smell of a stale, enclosed room. Or walking outside, enjoying the bright, sunny day, feeling and smelling the air. Which one and which way would we want to go? So I believe that we should take very carefully how much we want our kids to enjoy this environment, or perhaps even make sure that they consider the value of real life interactions and relationships.
Thank you very much, Keith. Very profound, talking about experiencing our environments and circumstances as well. So with that, we have come to the end of round one, which is the speaker speeches. We will now be moving on to round two, which is the quick fire round. So again, what this round will entail is that we will have one speaker answer a question posed by me. So for example, let's say I ask Dr. Koo, what brand is your spectacles, for example? And then he will respond to this with a 3-minute rebuttal. And then after that, okay, it doesn't have to be 3 minutes. It's a maximum of 3 minutes. Yeah. And after that, there will be someone from the opposing team, so either Yoga or Keith, who will also be able to jump in for about 90 seconds. And then hopefully we can get some good engagement through these responses between each other. All right, so Dr. Koo, the first question will be to you. Are you ready?
Sure. Luckily, it's not the spectacle. I don't know the brand. Yeah.
All right, it's definitely not. Okay, so the first question is, earlier you talked about how there are starting to be a lot more use cases of this technology. I just wanted to ask a bit more about that, because just because something might be in the metaverse, it might not be something that is in real life as well, the exact same thing. So for example, you talked about how medical students are able to use the metaverse to practice some of their skills, but perhaps some members of the audience might be worried as well that the skills that they used might not be exactly the same, because things that happen in the metaverse can't really be exactly the same in real life as well. So just wanted to hear more about your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Adam. I think thanks for the very good questions. And I think the questions is centered around the disparity or the gap between the real and the virtual world, which I believe is always going to be there for a while, right? Until it's seamlessly integrated. Right. When we look at metaverse, first of all, let me take a step back to look at how technologies are integrated in our society. Right. Technologies have, when it's truly integrated, right. Think about pen and paper. Right. Do you look at it as a technology? well, it transforms how knowledge is being transferred and how we are reading, how we are communicating, how we are learning. It's a huge technology, right? But when technology really happens, it disappears. It goes into the background, it blends into our daily life and integrate to our culture. Similarly, you know, when you look at technology like Metaverse today, it's still in a very much infancy, right? Well, technology does takes about, on average, when you look at the research, 40 to 50 years. If you look at mobile phones, you know, now every day, all of us do use smartphones. Anyone without a smartphone now? No, right? Everyone use smartphone. Can you do without a smartphone? You can't, right? And it is that. But if you look at, say, even 20 years ago, nobody had smartphones. You know, we are using phones only for calls, right? Today we use it for everything, right? WhatsApp, you know, and we know WhatsApp is used by everyone, not just. In fact, it's used by the older generation now because when I look at my students now, they refuse to use WhatsApp. They want to use this newer medium, right? But the fact is that all of us are using that. We are consuming all the things, and technology is evolving. It takes about 40, 50 years before it becomes big, right? Smartphones is a good example. It takes about 40 years before it becomes so mainstream, we can't live without it. It's part of our life, right? Similarly, in Metaverse, you know, there will be disparity, there will be gaps between real and virtual. But then again, I think this is where I think is a process of embracing it, right? For example, having that simulations of the delivery ward, having simulations of the AI patient. This allows us to better understand what you mean to simulate. How do we close the gap between what is real and what is virtual, and then from there improve that. And I believe, you know, if you keep doing that for many years down the road, one day you'll be seamlessly become a real metaverse where really there's not much difference between a real or virtual world, or you can't even tell what is real and what is virtual. Because if you really ask that question, what is real and what is virtual, to different generation, they can tell you something very different, right? To us, you know, going to restaurants to eat and to do things, to meet people, to do something is real. But if you ask a much younger generation, your children, you know, sometimes they think that meeting somebody on the online game is real connections. They are talking to real people. That is more real than meeting a person. So I think we need that blends. We need to make sure that the gaps is you know, seamlessly bridged, and then we create a much more immersive environment. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Koo. Yoganita, do you have a response for what Dr. Koo has said?
Yeah, thanks Dr. Koo for sharing, but I guess we have to look at what the metaverse is right now. Right now, the metaverse is lacking the hardware and software to truly provide an immersive experience. So it would take years, and the question is, how many years? It doesn't look like it's gonna happen anytime soon. So right now, the metaverse is not reliable. Yeah, that's all I have. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your thoughts. So we will now be moving on to the second cycle, which is the second question from myself. This question is directed at Yoganita. So earlier you talked about how sometimes things online might actually diminish the human experience, especially through the pandemic period, right? Where all of us went through that phase of feeling lonely at home. And even though we still had Zoom meetings online, or we met our friends in the virtual space, it still couldn't really connect or replicate what we faced in real life. But the thing is, I think when we look at this, we also have to consider the alternative. And in this case, perhaps the alternative was not a physical in-person meeting, but it was not even being able to meet at all. So in this case, I would say or suggest that perhaps this technology is something that augments or helps or adds to our day-to-day life rather than replaces it completely. So just wanted to hear, what do you think about this technology being used to help or supplement our day-to-day lives instead of completely taking over and having that feeling of loneliness completely?
Thanks for the question. I guess the general vision for the metaverse is for it to be a fully immersive experience, and it's supposed to replicate many aspects of the physical experience. So I guess some metaverse platforms offer, say, VR vacations, VR holidays, and it's just not the same going and visiting a place in person versus going and visiting it on the metaverse. Looking at the Eiffel Tower in real life provides quite a different experience than just visiting it online. The current state of the metaverse, like I shared just now, also does not allow for a truly immersive experience. For instance, in the metaverse, even though you have VR headsets and everything, you still have to click to smile, click to hug, click to touch. So, yeah.
I see. Thanks so much for that, Yoga. Does anyone on the proposition, one way maybe, do you want to respond?
Okay, sure. I have 90 seconds. So basically, back to Yoganita's point, actually, I do agree with her in the sense that, of course, real life is better sometimes. If not, why we turn up here, right? Right? Think about it. But the thing is that not everyone, there are different people on earth. So actually the metaverse helps with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So for instance, during COVID, we think about it in terms of opportunity cost. So if let's say I'm freaking lonely and I cannot have human connection, I cannot even move out of the room, right? So isn't Zoom a good alternative as compared to the other alternative of me just talking to myself in the room? Okay, it's number one. Second thing is that when it comes to travel, some people cannot travel either because lack of financial resources or maybe lack of physical resources. Back to Eiffel Tower, if I am on a wheelchair due to an injury, I really cannot go to the Eiffel Tower. I really have friends like that, by the way, due to disease. So basically, there's muscular degeneration, and he really cannot go up to high places. You need to, it's very tedious. So in this aspect, would you want to restrict your life experiences just because of physical limitation? So once again, back to our point, right? The metaverse is a space where dimensions can be manipulated, either time, space, or even things that are of value. What is value? So let's go back to social capital, cultural capital, financial capital. So as long as these three dimensions can be manipulated, it will actually benefit human beings. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. So on that note, we will move on to the third question, which is also for One Way. So my question is, earlier you talked a little bit about how now that the kids, the really younger generation is the one that is starting to use these technologies more and more, and they will be the ones to push forward the usage rates or adoption. But there's also this concern that because this technology is so immersive and it is significantly different from previous technologies before it, some of the previous generations might not be able to connect or take up or use these technologies as well. So just wanted to ask, what do you think about the potential divide between two different generations or even just the take-up rates in general?
It's an excellent question, actually. I absolutely agree that with seniors, example, my mom is 68 this year. My dad is 69 this year. My mom bought Bitcoin before me. Okay, this is a context. My dad, he really don't know what's Bitcoin, and he can't really use the laptops and things like that. So that's the context, a real context, right? So the thing about kids these days is that when I first learned how to start a Discord community, for a Web3 project, Metaverse project, I have to call my teacher and mentor a 20-year-old kid. I think it's a kid lah, but they have so much more experiences than I do and the older generation does, right? So in a sense, I think respect goes both ways. Those older generation, including myself, because it's a 20-year-old kid, I would be like, what does this kid know? He doesn't have working experience, this thing about experience. But the fact is that they spend a lot of time online, and with time spent online comes expertise because it's so natural to them. It's like it's literally like drinking water or a form of communication to their friends. So I think for the elder generation, there is a need to humble ourselves to look at what this skill set of the younger generation are, and for the younger generation to also respect the older people, not think that they are so outdated, cannot even use things like Discord. And something that's very real is just a side note, because it's related to Metaverse as well. Recently at Kopitiam, right? Some Kopitiam, they stopped accepting cash. So this has caused a lot of problems for the elderly generation. So I think this, back to this question about the generation divide, it's not limited only to metaverse. It's a bigger question on digital transformation. So that's one thing. So another thing is that how do we then bridge the divide, right? Using the metaverse, right, is back to Keith's point. Just now he says, okay, what if we are stuck on metaverse and we just are stuck at home? But how about Pokemon Go? Pokemon Go, people don't know what is a metaverse. The elder generation, they still play Pokemon Go outside, right? So you can go out and play Pokemon Go, and playing games that are related to metaverse using AR technology can actually unite people and bridge generation gap. This is just one of the examples.
Yeah, thank you very much. I remember playing Pokemon Go with my family when it first came out and being so excited. Yeah, I mean, okay, it probably was just me forcing them to play, but we played it together. That's the main point. Yeah. And finally, our last question for the quickfire round goes to Keith. Keith, earlier you talked about how it was possible for your kids to play around and experience things in the real physical world instead of experiencing things in the virtual world or the metaverse world as well, so to speak. So I just wanted to ask, how do you think this might translate in real life? Or rather, don't you think that it is also possible that this new technology will be something that is self-regulated by families, by parents such as yourself, instead of something that needs to be so heavily regulated by another agency or something that everyone has to be concerned about? Why can't it be just different families helping guide our younger generations through the usage of the metaverse?
Well, I'm so glad for SG Go Digital. What a great program that allows seniors or people that are not so comfortable with technology or need different ways to access it to be able to actually learn about it and use it. And of course, the National Library having us here today in order to share some of this. Those are great examples of how we can come together as a community and help each other learn, what are the right things, what's real, what's maybe fake news as well, and realize, hey, there are boundaries we may need to set on this technology. As you talk about family, we have no greater time in terms of connecting with each other, using Zoom or WhatsApp and what have you, right? But on the other hand, WhatsApp itself causes sometimes so many misunderstandings because it's not quite exactly the full thing. You write something and what you meant to say, hey, where's the things that we were talking about? You wanted it to be with a smile, but the person took it as a frown. And until you sit down in a coffee shop and discuss, hey, what did you mean? Go through, we don't really get the full idea. And so our concern here that Yoga and I have been talking about is, it's exciting, but let's understand it. Let's understand when we should use the metaverse, under what circumstance, what's real today or not. Families need to play a big part of that. The parents need to understand this technology, even perhaps get into it. Put on a headset. Pay the $2,000 for a great headset that will make your head hot and also feel very heavy and make you feel dizzy, just so you understand what your kids are going to be going through as well. And so these are good opportunities so we can say, hey, what type of boundary do we want to set? Should we really buy this for our niece, nephew, Christmas presents, etc.? The kids need to understand too, because they are in this. They're playing. The proposition said, look at your phone, screen time. I would urge all of us, have you accessed your young person's screen time just to see how long compared to what you thought they were working on? Mom, Dad, you got the phone for me to talk with my friends and so forth. Okay, how come I see you spent so much time on Clash of Clans, or what have you? And so these are good opportunities for us to set boundaries and connect with our kids and say, hey, let's make the right choices. The metaverse, though, provides a unique situation. Whereas before we could look at the kid's screen Now they're under glass potentially. They're interacting with people that we don't know around the whole world. And we may never see that interaction. And now instead of it just being in maybe a not so innocent discussion or picture, it's a fully immersive experience for a young kid. And you never even knew that your kid went through this. What's worse, with ChatGPT having come to the stage, which everyone is talking about, then they go in and say, oh, I just had this experience in the metaverse. Instead of talking to us as parents, they go to ChatGPT and say, can you tell me, ChatGPT, how should I respond to this experience I had in the metaverse? Now you're completely out of the loop. Your kids see a different authority than what you would expect. We still need to stay connected with generations, as was said, but we need to continue to build those real-life connections throughout this time.
Wow, thank you, Keith. Actually, what you were saying about ChatGPT reminded me of my week, because as a student myself, nowadays, whenever I get a question, I also just ask ChatGPT first, just to get an understanding of the topic before I do my own academic research about it. Wow, there's more than one professor here. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But speaking of which, for Dr. Gu, since you also teach a lot and interact with a lot of students, what do you think about some of the things that Keith himself has said?
Thanks. I really enjoy this conversation, and this is the topic I'm highly passionate about. I've been in Metaverse space for the last 18 years. So I know some of our colleagues who are in here for like even longer period, right? And I think Keith, I appreciate that Keith shared the excitement about what Metaverse have to offer. But at the same time, I think Keith was saying about two main concerns here. One is what is appropriate way to kind of use the Metaverse, right? And secondly, there were some challenges that brought about, the glasses being too heavy, Yeah, I'll kind of address these 2 points. So first, on the appropriate use, I think this is where it's really about what I mentioned earlier, how technology have to weave into our society, into our culture. Think about it, when mobile phone was first introduced in 1973, right? The Motorola Dynatec, right? Its sole purpose is for making a call, right? To call to somebody else to make a call. Who would have imagined today you're using your mobile phones for navigation? I want to get from point A to point B. You're driving a car. You're walking there. You can put out your phone. It can show you all the arrows, what to walk. All kind of things, right? Not to mention so many other things you could do with the phone. Nobody have imagined what we have done with the technology. We had to start somewhere, right? And it takes us a long journey to get there. As we are in today's Metaverse, we are probably about 30 plus years in the working, right? So it's still not mature. Right? But we need to learn how it works. So the best way to learn is to put it forward. And then when people use it, and we learn how to navigate. Just like your example Keith mentioned about how parents, it's good because those are all parents' concern where the children are doing. What are they doing? What are they watching? What are they communicating with? This is where when you look in there, then all these concerns we raise, it could be either regulated by the family itself, or it could be raised as certain concerns where the developers or the tech providers would make changes to make the technology appropriate. It will change, What we see today as a metaverse may not be like I still mentioned, it's still in the infancy. It may not look exactly like what it is, but I guess it will evolve. And we also change as well. Sometimes we change our behavior and what we are familiar with because of what the technology affords us to do as well, right? So I think it's really a very interesting interplay within technology, human, and our culture, and how we actually evolve along that. So that's my first counter argument. And secondly, about the headset being too heavy, and I agree. When I first started, the headset cost like $50,000, right? And if you're not careful, you break your neck, right? So it is that, right? But we as a researchers, we start going on that, right? I remember designing or developing the first intergeneration mixed reality game that allowed grandparents and children to play at home, where it can connect the whole game to a virtual world where parents can also join in from the internet. It's not, by all means, it's not perfect. It's still not realized today, but it's all research. But we all try to find ways. How do we do that? And devices will get better. it definitely get better. If you think about the devices today, like I think one way was mentioning the cheap devices VR could cost us about $100+. Well, don't buy those. I think those are not still the best, because there's certain need of a certain level of fidelity for you to be really immersed into it. But you have very, very decent headset for a few $100s today, right? Those are very, very, you can see each other very well, and you can actually wave your hand and it can detect your hands waving, right? It's not possible 10 years ago commercially, right? But today you can easily, most of the headsets today can detect you're using a hand. So ideally you can say hi to your friends in the virtual world. You can shake hand. You can't feel it yet, but we have research that we can have haptic glove. You can actually touch and feel objects as well. So those are coming. So now today we see like AI human, like you talk about ChatGPT. I think that's exciting, because this is the area we have been working on. AI human. We create hologram of human. When you look at a hologram, basically you wear glasses and you overlay the hologram in front of you. So I can imagine a hologram sitting in front of the sofa here. But I can tell it's still a hologram, because it's not as real contrast as when I look at one of you, every one of you, right? So I can see that you're a real person, that there's a hologram. But could you tell the difference in 20 years' time? We don't know. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that, and sharing with us as well so many different aspects about it that we might have not thought of previously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our speakers for that engagement and that lively discussion. I really enjoyed it. So right now, what we are going to do is that we are going to have another poll to see how the outcome of the debate has gone. We want to do a post-debate poll, so to speak, to make sure that we get a better understanding of how our thoughts, our perspectives, and our consensus even has changed over time. So can I please have everyone to go to your browser, type in kahoot.it again, and this time, it's already the setup for you right there, so just go back to the link. All right, that's good. People can answer as well. So once again, just go ahead and choose which answer you feel more strongly about, or rather, which answer you feel the most strong about. The answers are the same. The one in red, the triangle, is I think the metaverse will be a digital nightmare. That's the first option in red. The second option, a blue diamond, it reads, I think the metaverse will be a virtual paradise. The third option, a yellow circle, I am on the fence. And lastly, in green, and there's a green square over there on your screens, it is, I want to find out more about the metaverse. Those at home, please go ahead, take out your phones, scan the QR code, or if you are already inside it, go ahead and vote and press the answer that you feel most strong about. Oh, these are the results, and the results are in. And hey, look at that. It seems like there are more people who feel either way towards the metaverse. So good and bad. So previously, I believe there was about 13% of the audience who felt that the metaverse will be a digital nightmare. We have increased this percentage to 23%. But at the same time, we have a larger proportion of the audience who feel that the metaverse will be a virtual paradise. Excellent. So that probably means that both sides have done a good job in convincing the audience either way, in trying to figure out what the metaverse is about. So even if we can't decide, or even if there is no clear consensus or agreement in the audience about what the metaverse will be or how to feel towards the metaverse, one thing is for sure, which is that all of us have a better understanding about it today. And I think that's why the opinions have shifted from no opinion or on the fence to one opinion one way or another, so that it's a good thing. It means that we are learning and we are understanding. And I think in the days, weeks, months, and even years to come, we will start to learn more about it as well. So on your screen, you can actually see what percentage of people changed their votes. So yeah, if you look at it earlier, the last option, I don't know much about the metaverse, had 20 of us. That's like a quarter of the audience today saying that they don't really know too much about the metaverse. But now the last option has changed to, I want to find out more about the metaverse. That's only 6 people. In fact, that means that there's about 14 people who have taken a stance today. And we can also see that there are more people who think that the metaverse will be a digital nightmare, and we also have more people who think or believe that the metaverse will be a virtual paradise. Much less people on the fence now, actually. Wow, yeah, that's where the majority of the reduction came from, actually. It means that people now have some strong opinions about it. So that's excellent. It means that all of us have learned quite a lot today. Yeah, so let's give a round of applause for everyone. Really good job. So before we wrap up and just close today, I think it is worth our time to just have a little short discussion about how each of you feel towards the metaverse and its future. So maybe we can start with Wan Wei, since you're on this end. Can we just maybe have some of your thoughts about how you think the metaverse will evolve and change, or how it might manifest itself in Singapore in maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to come?
Thanks. Thanks, Adam. So basically, actually my personal stance is a little bit different from the professional stance that we're taking today, because I personally don't like my nephews to use too much of the phone. Currently, they're on Roblox and Fortnite, and they teach me how to play on Fortnite. So I went to Japan for a month last December. So when I came back, I had Minecraft soft toy, and they were really ugly. So I have this bag of soft toy for my nephews, and I asked them to choose which one's your favorite. So the younger one chose Minecraft ugly soft toy. I was like, what is this? Why you choose the ugliest one? So she was like, oh, it's from Minecraft, don't you know? Then I was like, wow. I didn't even know the ugly dolphin was from Minecraft. But there's a strong emotional attachment, which means that this kid who is like 5 years old, he played a lot of Minecraft. And it scares me lah, because I don't want my nephews to get myopia from such a young age, and I don't want them to have bad eyesight from a young age. So I personally do not think it's very healthy for kids to be on the metaverse, on gaming platforms so much. So much, even more than myself. So the other point about like trends, I don't think metaverse is a question of whether we opt in or opt out. I think it's inevitable. So we just need to navigate and leverage the strength and be aware of the cons. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Dr. Koo, can we have your opinions as well? How do you think the metaverse will show itself in Singapore in some of the years to come?
Right. Yeah, I echo what Wan Wei mentioned about, I think, the need to regulate and get familiarized as well with the new technology like Metaverse, right? I have young kids as well, so I have shared same concern, the screen times and all this. But, opting out is not an option, because like it or not, it's happening. Right, it's how do we embrace it? But on the more brighter side, I also see the opportunity, because I think that in the last few years, especially with COVID, and a lot of this research about immersive reality, where we try to simulate the environment, with the medical school, it just exploded, because they don't have any choice, right? Initially, it's good to have, we can still teach them, but it's good to have technology. But when COVID hits, well, we are out of options. We need to do it. No way, right? We have to do that. So that's where it opens up a lot of opportunity. That's why we do a lot of simulations, creating virtual humans, creating simulations that procedures you can touch and can feel and follow, right? And we not only medical, right? Now in the lab, we also have projects got to do with how we transform metaverse for museums or experiences, where we have sculptures and things that we can also see, right? So I don't really know the answer to where you will lead us to Singapore, but definitely we have started. I think it's a good tractions we have, good progress we are making. It's just that I don't know what the futures hold for Metaverse, but I know for sure it will transform how we live and how we work and how we consume and bridge, creating a more seamless world where real and physical is not so divided. Yeah.
Right, thank you very much. Ionita, over to you. I mean, I'm sure you must have something to say about this, because I'm sure you have done quite a lot of research and writing about the metaverse as well.
Yeah, I actually agree with Dr. Koo about the opportunities. It's quite undeniable. It can transform not just the medical industry, but obviously various other industries as well. But the metaverse still has to solve a lot of issues, such as interoperability, as well as it has to be regulated. Especially legislation issues, when issues occur in the metaverse. I've covered this before in one of my articles. So I think with new tech like AI and even cryptocurrencies, as it gets integrated into the metaverse, it's quite inevitable that everything would happen in the metaverse soon. But I don't think this will happen in 2 or 3 years. It would take 10, 20 years.
Right. And on that note, Keith, what about yourself? What do you think about the future of the metaverse to come?
Well, so it's going to be important to actually get Metaverse right. It will come here, and we'll have to use it. The next big epidemic, we won't want to use Zoom. We'll want to use something a bit more immersive. But also there's a period of time that's coming as well that will remind us of a time period 100 years ago. 100 years ago, when people sailed, from China to Singapore or from America over to Europe, you couldn't contact anybody for months, maybe even years. And so we loved mail. And then when the telephone came, it was so exciting. Hey, I can hear someone's voice. But, and we used to watch the Jetsons, right? The Jetsons had that video screen, and we can't wait for that to actually come to life. And now it's here. So I agree with Prof that technology keeps moving too. I also agree with yoga though. This governance is so critical because when I can have a classroom of people from all around the world come into class and sit down, there are certain rules and regulations by each jurisdiction that are different. So now whose rules or regulations are you under? If you visit a class at National University of Singapore that's completely on the metaverse, are you under Singapore rules? Or if you're visiting for MIT, are you under MIT rules? And so the way that students act and t-shirts with certain slogans they might wear are going to be different in different countries. How do you then moderate that? One step further, I also agree that AI is necessary to regulate that because you have now the class can be not 100 students, but 10,000 students. And so now you have an AI that goes around and makes sure everyone is behaving, maybe shocks them if they're watching Netflix instead of watching, instead of paying attention to class. Okay, maybe not shocks, but these are things we need to think through. And as was mentioned also, we just need to go ahead and use them and play and understand. So I think for all of us in the audience, I hope that you'll, I agree that we should use the metaverse. Try it out, play with it, so then you can be informed about what should be the limitation, what should we use, what we shouldn't use, and maybe even what to invest in and not invest in as well, so we can stay safe. There's been too much hype in the area.
Right, thank you very much. Actually, since we have a couple of minutes more, I just wanted to ask, because I think some of us in the audience, when we hear things like try it out, we might not be too sure how exactly do we try it out, how exactly do we access it. So maybe if maybe a few of you could, how would you suggest we try this out, so to speak?
Well, from one side is there's a great, in Suntec, there's a VR game place, and also in Funan, right? I think on the 3rd or 4th floor. You can go and play that and see what it's like. So that's a relatively low cost and very immersive way to try out this VR type of thing, and potentially very fun.
Right, thanks so much. Dr. Koo?
Maybe I'd like to add to that as well. I think there's many ways you should try, and those are easily accessible as well. If you type in a Google search, or you can ask ChatGPT, where can you try? And I guess there are a few. If you look at some, there are actually VR and immersive environment have been depicted in quite a few movies as well. If you know movie like Ready Player One, there are books written about it. So I think that could be one way to kind of understand it from another perspective. Of course, if you want to try it firsthand, there are many ways, like what Keith had mentioned, there are a few VR arcades around, like Sandbox and all this, that you can go there, play some games. It's really engaging. I think most of you are going to feel very energetic after playing the game, right? Or maybe very tired after that. But, you're going to be very consumed during the activities. Do that. Or if you want to, even if you buy like devices, we have like, for example, Meta has Oculus devices, Meta Quest. You can actually, those are inexpensive. It's cheaper than a mobile phone. right? And most, it's actually affordable. There's a Quest store where a lot of different titles like games and experiences you could try. There's also, like other brands like Pico that has a different headsets. There's also Microsoft with the HoloLens, which is a bit more expensive, but you have a range of devices you could try. And, those are very first-hand way of doing it. I'm happy to also have a discussion if you wanted to visit our lab to have a try as well. That is something we can also do that. So there are many companies or universities, researchers working on this topic as well. So if you're interested, talk to them, try it out as well, right? So there are, I think, a lot of ways you could get started, could experience it. But yeah, very interesting. We also, for me, I really wanted to hear some of your feedback as well, because we need to collectively see how we could experience and use the technology and embed it into our culture as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, I think we have come to the end of today. And I feel like I have learned so much from the four of you today. Can we please just give them another round of applause? In summary, what have we learned? We've learned that the metaverse and new technologies in general, I would say, is something that we are not able to stop or control completely. Whether we think that there are benefits to it, or whether we think that there are some parts about it that are perhaps not so desirable, sooner or later we would probably have to engage with it. And I think that if there's one thing that we could all take away from today, it is that we should do our best to engage with it in whatever way that we can, even if it's in some small way. Even just coming here to learn more about it, I would say, is a form of engagement already. But another way of engagement is also perhaps to do some of the things that our speakers have talked about. Because at the end of the day, when we are all forced to use it, be it from the next pandemic or for any other reason, at least we will be better equipped to not just handle it and use it for ourselves, but perhaps we will also be better equipped to teach the next generation, to guide those who are most vulnerable, and in the case of Dr. Koo, maybe to give him feedback so that we can make more improvements in the years to come. And with that, that's all from us, I would say, and I would like to pass the time back to Hashif. Hashif, over to you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please join me in giving our debaters and moderator a big round of applause. Thank you very much. It was pretty exciting.